I hope I'm not disturbing you. I didn't even realize you were here. I come down here, usually I'm alone. And I come here to meditate and pray a little bit. And this is troubled times. Have you been watching what's happening, talking to the neighbors on the phone today? October 29th. That's today, 1929. It'll go down in history, I think, today with the stock market. I don't own stock. Some of you probably do. You probably do. You look like somebody who don't own stock. But I don't know. I just know we're in for tough times. I often come here when I'm troubled and kind of drawn to this spot right here because I can be right here and look right over there and see that church that I helped build. I'm also, when I look that way, looking at my mom and dad's grave. If you look, you can see it. It's got a cross on the top. It's the cross on the left right there. Lined right up with the church, that's my dad, Bruno. And Mom, Maria. Just to be here with them and look at the church and reflect on the blessings I have, that's always a way to just feel better about things, realize my blessings, and especially remembering how tough Dad had it. He was born in 1827 in Germany. 4 of his siblings were dead within a year or 2 of his birth. And it was tough in Germany in 1827. Food was hard to come by, religious persecution, wars were going on. All the time something was happening. By 1834, my father's dad and mom said, enough, we need to leave Germany. We're going to join up with other German Catholic families that are leaving. And they did in 1834. They came to this country and they went to Ohio, where a lot of German Catholics were at. Mom and Dad were married in 1849, and it was a blessing. They had a priest to do it, Father Albrecht. He was from the missionary priests, the Precious Blood, came to Ohio in 1848, so the year before, they had the spiritual support they needed, the entire German community. That was the rock of their community, the Catholic priest that was there for them through all the tough times, and they just really felt so good about him. He became somebody that everybody relied on. And things went okay until about 1863. That's when things started to wobble a little bit. 1863, Dad's brother got cholera. So did his brother's wife. His brother, sister-in-law, and one of his nephews passed away with cholera in 1863. Mom and Dad took them in, the kids in, 6 kids into our house. With the 7 we already had, there was 13 kids under one roof, struggling for food. And if that wasn't bad enough, well, they were getting by, but it was tough. The spiritual rock of the German community, Father Albrecht, he started to get in trouble with the Catholic bishop in Ohio. See, the missionary priest that he didn't have all the in-depth training that a lot of priests did in those days. And, well, he was stubborn. He was a stubborn German priest. And he got so crossways with the bishop in Ohio, the bishop said, enough already. Stop saying Mass. He's just told him to quit. Father Albrecht ended up in Dad's barn in 1866. Devastated and embarrassed, and saying he's going to the frontier. And Dad said, maybe I'll go with you. And so did the other members of leaders of the German families in that community in Ohio. And they all picked up and they went to the frontier. They went to Minnesota in 1866, and it was tough. They had to cut down trees and build log cabins, clear land to plant crops. They started over in 1866. And more people were added to the family. I was born in 1872. There were 16 kids in one house when we were in Minnesota. Now, some were older than others. You get 16 kids. They're all over the map in age, but it was tough. 1883, things started unraveling again, even though Father Albrecht had established a strong Catholic community. He asked all the ladies if they wanted to be nuns, and some did. Two of my sisters, Julia and Aurelia, they formed a convent. We had a couple of groups going there, a convent and a group of brothers. My uncle was one, Brother Joseph, my cousin, Brother Cornelius. My two sisters joined the convent, Aurelia and Julia. Sadly, Julia passed away at age 27, but they joined the convent. And then problems there in 1863 when, wouldn't you know it, Father Albrecht, he gets in trouble with the bishop again in Minneapolis. Father Albrecht didn't believe that all the sacraments were necessary in the Catholic Church, and that sometimes you just know that's going to cause a problem. Father Albrecht didn't believe that confession was necessary, but the bishop did. And the bishop is the lead guy, okay? So what did the bishop do? He started threatening Father Albrecht. Father Albrecht talked to the families, said, you know what? Maybe we should all pick up and go to the frontier. But we just did that. This is the second time. Go to Oregon. Get away from this oversight of the bishops. Maybe we should just pick up and go. By 1883, Father Albrecht was realizing he was in trouble, and he was getting old. So he identified three people, three family leaders in the community, and appointed them trustees of his entire community to help in case something went wrong with him especially, but to keep an eye on all the resources that they had. And well, something unfortunate really happens at this point. 1884, Father Albrecht up and dies, okay? The German families that were with him, that he saw through really difficult times, really felt he was a saint. And so they entombed him in the altar of the Catholic Church that they had built. Those trustees decided, let's just do what Father Albrecht was already talking about. Let's pick up and we're going to Oregon. We're going to start over again. Go to the frontier. 1884, the train line had just opened up. You could get on a train in Minnesota and go all the way to Portland. So they got 3 train box cars. They got them on the side track. They loaded them up with farm equipment, people, livestock, a little bit with livestock. And, you guessed it, Father Albrecht. They didn't want to leave him behind. So they broke into back through the church. They got his body out, and they hid the body in a crate, got it on the train car, and they were taking their priest. It worked out fine until somewhere between the Dakotas and Montana when one of the train axles malfunctioned. It fell apart, and they got on the side track, and the train crew's shifting the stuff into another boxcar, and guess what they found? Father Albrecht. Yeah. So this was a little bit of a mini crisis for a while until the trustees spoke to the train crew and some money changed hands. Now I was 12, so I don't know exactly if that was a fine or just what it was, but Father Albrecht was loaded on the train and he continued on the journey with us. So we made it to Portland, down the valley to West Scio, and got off the train and went up into the Jordan Valley and got our farms. It was finally 1884, we're here. Unfortunately, in 1885, we realized, the trustees, that they were having a little problem. They couldn't agree. They didn't trust a priest coming in because they had 2 bishops already that Father Albrecht didn't get along with, and so they decided that there shouldn't be any masses in the community because we just don't trust that the bishop might not come and try and take some of our stuff that we brought from the church, in Minnesota. Now that's a problem. If you are a convent of nuns and you can't have Mass, that's a problem. Of course, this is where Dad began to say this ain't right. So Dad arranged, he worked to have Mass said in his house. And so my dad started bringing the priest over from Mount Angel, sneaking in, Father Werner, and Mass was held in his house, and Aurelia got out the convent back door, and she came on sneaking over, and so did Brother Cornelius and Brother Joseph. Over there, the bishop sent a wagon, and any lady that wished to be a nun that wished to relocate could, and they did. They came over here on this property. Bishop Gross was very nice, and by 1887, he had done everything necessary for my sister Aurelia and her colleagues, the other nuns, to be an official religious order. So in 1887, she professed her vows as Sister Cecilia, and they switched the name. They tried a couple things, but they ended up with the Sisters of St. Mary. So in 1891, Cecilia was assigned to an orphanage, to run an orphanage in Beaverton, Oregon, here. And so she did that, and things started looking up for us. I was working on this church. Dad donated a bunch of stuff to go on the inside. I started some carpenter type activities. I don't really like farming, but that's what the family had done for years. And I am just so blessed. I found my Ellie, Helen Smith, I call her Ella. And so Ella and I started out, we got married here in 1894, and I don't like to farm. I'm more of a carpenter, and so I told Ella, I said, it'd be good if we had had a little bit of help. And so one thing led to another, and Fred was born. Now Fred, he's the oldest. I always say wisdom is chasing Fred, but Fred is just a little faster, okay? But we had Fred to help out on the farm, and then Albert and Carl. Carl's good with cows. Leo. Let's see, Bill. Ralph. Pete. Pete. At 9 years old, Pete was getting gopher bounties from the Marion County Commissioners. That's how good Pete is. And then, to help out Ella, I was Ida, came along, and Emma, and Luella, Celie, and Jenny, okay. So, there's a lot of extra hands that help out on the farm. I don't have to farm quite as much, and in fact, I can spend more time doing carpenter work, and then I'm married up. Ella was a smith, and her dad started this cannery over here in Staten about 1922, and 24 it was a co-op, and we gave me a nice position there. So it worked out well, And then the Staten Switchboard Association, that's how I found out about today's event. October 29 here, I found that out because switchboard operators tend to, what happens when you're plugging things in, you kind of listen in on things, and so I found out a little bit more about this stock market thing. Then Ella makes a mean fruit cake. She puts a fifth of Prohibition. We can't really talk about that, can we? She puts something in it that makes it real good, okay? Real good. And we have a little false bottom in our closet where we keep supplies that she may need. I should probably be moving on here. I've got Ella to get out here for our 35th anniversary. I told her that's why I'm dressed this way. I told her I'd take her out here, do something here in a little bit, but I wanted to stop by here first. I'll let you all go. Yeah.